Hi there, let's look at our next topic, which is soil. We'll also cover fertilizers and improving soil quality. Taking care of our soil has become a very important thing on Earth. Healthy soil, which is sometimes called topsoil, is really starting to degrade thanks to human activity. And so very degraded soil around the world is in pink on the map. Degraded soil is in green and stable soil is in blue. So if you look, northern Canada and Russia have stable soil. Unfortunately, most of it is permafrost, in other words, frozen most of the year, so it's hard to farm that. So soil has many mineral particles in it. It's got sand, silt, and sometimes clay. These minerals come from inorganic things, which means things that were never alive. Boulders, rocks, pebbles. Soil also has organic things in it, like dead plants, decaying plants, dead bugs and animals, and living creatures, which make it, these are helpful to the soil. There are three important parts of soil: sand, clay, and humus. Sand is made from weathered rocks and it's mostly quartz. Sand is made up of very large grains. It's very coarse and it's usually light in color. Sand, if you try and pour water through it, sand allows water to flow really quickly through it. So it doesn't make good soil because it's too, what we call, it's too porous. Too porous. Sand needs to be broken down more. Clay is on the other end of the spectrum. So sand is too big of particles, too porous. Clay has too fine of particles. If you had a field full of clay, that would be really bad. Okay, clay does come from weathered rock, usually feldspar, but it's very, very tiny grains, which makes it soft, it sticks together, and it's if you have a whole bunch of clay, the water sort of pools on top of the clay, and it's not porous enough. There's not enough room to allow water to seep through. There's not enough room for air and other organic creatures to live in it. Humus, on the other hand, is the name for organic soil, and it has large and small pieces, and it's just perfect for growing plants. So here's the best type of soil. It's called loam. Loam has the perfect formula for healthy soil. 50% solid material, 50% water, or 25% water and 25% air. So loam is crumbly, dark brown with lots of humus in it, and it's perfect for plants because it holds just the right amount of air and water. Clay is hard, it's slippery, and as we talked about, small pore size, and it can't hold water well or air. And sand is too watery. In other words, it's too porous. Water seeps through too quickly, and it's hard for a plant to get at it. How do we get more airspace into soil? Here's one way, and so allow worms, earthworms, to break it apart, or throw some sand into the soil. That will help get more airspace. If your soil lacks nutrients, plants make their own organic in the form of glucose. However, they need inorganic substances and they get it from the soil. Nitrogen is one type of substance a plant needs, and nitrogen helps make green leaves and it stimulates photosynthesis. Phosphorus is the next substance that plants need in large quantities, and potassium. Kind of like our bodies, we need to eat carbohydrates, we need to eat food for protein, and we need a little bit of fat in our diet, and that keeps us healthy. Plants need nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So when you buy fertilizer, it usually has three numbers on it. The first number stands for the percentage of nitrogen, the second number potassium, and the third number stands for the amount of, or second number phosphorus, third potassium. So here's some eco tablets. it has three numbers, 15, 5, and 10. So most of it, 15 is 15% of it is nitrogen, which means if we added this to a plant, that would help make it green. It has a little bit of phosphorus, which would stimulate a little bit of seed growth, and it has a little bit of potassium, which stimulates flowering. So again, plants or soil needs nutrients, and they need those three nutrients. Here's another bag of fertilizer. It's called Lawn Pro, so it's mostly nitrogen, and therefore that would help make the grass green. We have to be careful not to add too much fertilizer. This is called algal blooms or algae blooms, and it happens in bodies of water when runoff from the soil, all the extra fertilizer ends up here. So extra fertilizer ends up in the water, and that promotes algae growth. The reason it's bad is, as you can see here, no sun is going to get into this lake or pond, which means any plants below are going to die. Eventually, if the sun doesn't allow in and you don't get plants growing, all you get is this blanket of algae, then you'll just get bacteria in the pond growing and maybe a few leeches, and it won't be healthy. There will be very little oxygen and the fish will die. So we lose soil, as I said before, through lots of mechanisms. Over-tilling, too much chemicals, fertilizers, etc., overgrazing of cattle. The breakdown of soil can also result in loss of nutrients, moisture, air, and that will result in dead, dry soil. How do we rebuild soil? Well, different ways. One way is something called contour farming, and you can plow the ground on a hill so that the water gets trapped in what's called furrows. Terracing is another way to rebuild the soil. That's if you have steep slopes, you can prevent erosion by building on slopes. Strip farming, where you plant a crop and then grass and so on, so that you prevent soil erosion from wind. You could rotate your crops so you're not depleting too much of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And you could use a technique called zero tillage, which means you don't plow your field. Instead, you leave it to decompose. Soil contains minerals that all living things need. We use soil to grow our food. Many animals live in soil, and plants depend on it for food. So that soil helps soak up rain so we don't get flooding. So here are the techniques I talked about. So you could build on terraces, which are steps. So build on steps, and that prevents water from washing the soil down. So terracing is a good technique to prevent soil erosion. Strip farming, so alternating between, this is just basically roots and stuff, and it stays there to anchor the soil, and then you plant crop here. So you're alternating your crop. Okay, now this is not crop, it's just used to anchor the soil. And so this strip farming technique is good, but you only use half your land, however, less erosion. Zero tillage, you leave all the stubble in the field so that when the wind comes, whoosh, doesn't blow the soil away, and you just plant your seeds underneath the stubble. So you don't plow the field. Plowing would dig it up. And this is a seed drill. So a seed drill basically shoots the seed into the soil without having to till it or plow it up. Because if you till or plow it and loosen it, the wind will blow it away. You could rotate your crops. Different types of crops deplete different nutrients, and so if you rotate, here's your land. Next year you plant your legumes here, you plant this over here, and so on, and that means that you don't deplete too much of one particular type of nutrient. You could grow plants without soil. We call that hydroponics. So this is a nutrient solution. So the plants are growing in a special watery nutrient solution where you don't use the soil at all. You could build shelter belts, which are basically a row of trees around your crop, and then the wind can't get at your crop. So it's a nice shelter. And so let's look at the brain pop on soil.
Dear Tim and Moby, where does soil come from? From Juno. Soil is a blend of rock and mineral fragments, water, air, and humus. That's carbon-rich or organic material left behind by living things. It all starts with the rocks and minerals that form the Earth's crust. Things like wind, water, ice, carbon dioxide, and oxygen break the crust down in two processes called weathering and erosion. Weathering is the process of breaking down rocks, soil, and minerals through contact with the atmosphere. Heat, pressure, water, and other chemicals can cause a rock to become weathered. And erosion is something that causes rocks to move and disintegrate by the action of water, wind, gravity, and ice. As a rock erodes and weathers over many years, it breaks down into tiny pieces, and small plants are able to grow in it. The roots of the plants break the rock down even more. Humus made of dead plants accumulates in the rock. The humus makes the dirt more livable, not only for more complex plants, but also for animals that live in the ground, like worms and insects. As more and more plants and animals live in the soil, its humus content rises, and it becomes more and more fertile. The process can take thousands and thousands of years. But if you've ever dug a deep hole, you can actually see the different stages of soil in the process of forming. Soil is made up of three layers, or horizons. Horizon A, or topsoil, contains lots of humus, which makes it the darkest layer. The A horizon is covered by a layer of litter, made up of leaves, twigs, and other organic material. This stuff will eventually decompose into more humus. Horizon B, or subsoil, contains weathered rocks and minerals and clay. It has much less humus than the A horizon, so it's lighter in color and much less fertile. Horizon B contains some organic material washed down from the A horizon through leaching. When water soaks into the topsoil, it reacts with the humus to form an acid. This acid dissolves some of the nutrients in the A horizon and drips down into the B horizon, making it a bit more fertile. The same thing happens in Horizon C, which is made up of partially weathered rocks and minerals, as well as leached material from the B horizon.